Hello, everybody. This is Scott Vogel from Terror, Buried Alive, and Hot Water Music's #1 fan, and you are listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Aaron Bedard, vocalist of Bane. Bane have been an institution in our scene for over 20 years now. They're an excellent band. They just reissued their classic first LP, It All Comes Down to This. It's been completely remixed by Brian McTernan. And we talk all about that. We talk all about Bane's history. And we talk about how the hardcore scene and Bane ultimately helped Aaron address and heal some of the trauma from his past. It's an excellent conversation, and it's coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Volume 4 of the Iodine Noise Cult is live now. Sign up and you'll get all Iodine vinyl releases for 2025. Annual membership is $300, or get a monthly membership for $28 a month. Rebuilder will be playing the Boston Calling Music Festival. That takes place in Boston May 23rd through 25th at the Harvard Athletic Complex. Walter Schreifels of Quicksand will be giving guided tours of the Punk Rock Museum January 25th and 26th in Las Vegas, Nevada. And don't forget to pick up all the latest and greatest releases from Iodine Recordings. Sign up for the newsletter at iodinerecordings.com, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And don't forget to support our sponsor for the month of January, 30 Something Records. 30 Something Records is an independent record label based in Berlin, Germany. It was founded by Matthias and Maren Bacher in 2019, and they've got reissues and new releases from exciting artists all over the globe, including Far, The Fire Theft, Star Market, Pop Unknown, Orange 9mm, and many more. The pre-order is up now for We Should Have Never Lived Like We Were Skyscrapers by Chin Up, Chin Up. This is the debut album by Chicago's leading avant-garde pop indie band. It's a 20th anniversary pressing on vinyl for the very first time, and it's been completely remastered with new artwork and packaging. The pre-order is up now in the 30-something shop at Steadfast Records in the US and Devil Dog Distro in Europe and the UK. Also, 30-something Records is the first sponsor for Snapcase Legacy. That's the new Snapcase documentary that's coming out, and I can't wait to see that. The Kickstarter is live right now for the documentary, so go donate if you can. For more information, head to 30somethingrecords.com or head to their Instagram at 30.something.records. All right, so check back in with me in segment 3. We'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Aaron. I'll tell you everything that's going on with me, but right now, we are going to speak to Aaron Bedard of Bane. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Aaron Bedard. Aaron, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Aaron, it's great to have you here. I've been waiting to get you on the show. I've had Zach, I've had the other Aaron, and now we have you, and we have the 25th anniversary edition of It All Comes Down to This, one of my favorite records out, and all kinds of stuff. Bane is back. We're happy about that, and I want to talk to you about all of that. But first, Aaron, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Today's been good. Today's been a good day. Things are good right now. Winter's coming. Not my favorite time of the year. It's starting to get a little cold in the apartment, but I finally have some downtime. Bane's been really busy since the summer, I haven't been able to string more than a few weeks together of just like free time to do whatever I want. Now there seems to be a stretch of that, and that'll be nice. And things are good here. I have nothing to complain about right now, honestly.
That's awesome. Now that you have downtime, are you happy about it or are you not happy about it? This is something I go back and forth with a lot.
It's funny, once upon a time, I really didn't know how to deal with the downtime between tours when Bane toured for longer stretches, and it was sort of more a part of my identity and my, year in, year out reality. Now this year, we've done our first touring, nothing too significant, but we did 4 sort of short 9-day to 2 week tours. And yeah, being home from it feels different. It feels nice. It feels good to have just some downtime. I don't really kind of have the same wild animal that I had in me, 8-10 years ago, where I just wanted to fucking go, go, go. And I didn't even think of like being home and being able to relax and just read or just kind of do my own thing as a good thing at all. And now I really appreciate it. So yeah, I'm kind of happy to have a few weeks. We have one show in late December. We'll go to Detroit and play a festival. And then I don't know when we do. There's like nothing on the horizon as far as significant touring until the summer. Maybe something will come up, but yeah. Talk to me in 2 months. I might be going absolutely fucking stir crazy. But right now, I feel pretty content, to be honest.
That's good. That's good. Where do you live?
I live in Somerville, Mass, right outside of Boston.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Worcester. Where are you from? Do you know Mass? Are you from Mass?
I've been to Boston a bunch of times, and I know that Quincy exists because that's where my aunt used to live. But cool. I'm in Philadelphia. I've been in Brooklyn since 2012, and I grew up in the Philadelphia area / Philadelphia before then.
I see. I grew up in Worcester, which is the second biggest city in all of New England. It's about 40 miles west of Boston.
And what's your situation there? Do you have a partner, a wife? Is it just you? What do you got going on?
I live with a couple of roommates.
Yeah,
I've been living in this same apartment for like pushing 15 years now with a couple friends, and we try to just keep rent cheap and we try to keep living expenses cheap. And we've been sort of skating through on that program for an incredibly long time, to be honest.
I like that. How is it for you? I've lived with roommates and I've not lived with roommates, and I definitely prefer to be alone, but that increases cost about, 300 times what it would be.
I agree with you 100%. I prefer to be alone. I've only been able to do that once in my life. All through my 20s, I was able to have my own apartment in Worcester. And I didn't realize at the time how nice that is, how nice it is to not have to deal with anyone else's bullshit. But to live in Boston, it's just near impossible without a real career type, money coming in to be able to sustain living on your own. So here's good. I have a big room. The roommates tend to, kind of, they all do their own thing. We all sort of keep to ourselves. And so largely it does feel like living alone. There's a lot of respect in the apartment. It's not like I'm cleaning up after anyone or anything like that. So for the most part, it's a very good living situation. But there are times where I'm just like, man, do I miss that spot back in Worcester where it was just me and everything was mine. And it was pretty nice.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I'm like, I could maybe get a room somewhere and not have to work the jobs I don't want to work and just do this. Yeah. But then I'd have to live with people, Yeah. So that's the trade-off.
It really is.
Yeah. So you grew up in Worcester, and what about your interest in music? Is it something that you've always been interested in?
There's like 2 phases to it. When I was a child, my mother was really into music, and I had a cousin who was in a band and really into AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. And so music was sort of a thing that I liked. And I liked when my mom would play the Beatles, and I liked certain records and certain songs, but none of it really landed hard on me. Even when I was in junior high school, when I had friends that were listening to Motley Crue and Def Leppard, I thought that stuff was cool, but it never sort of eked its way into my identity at all. I didn't go home and like long to listen to those things. It wasn't until 14 when I heard the Sex Pistols and the Dead Kennedys that, like, the analogy I tend to use is like a light switch was flipped and suddenly I saw music for the first time. It like really presented itself to me. And then I was obsessed. And then I wanted to buy records and I wanted to know who the cool bands were and I wanted to see these bands live. But yeah, it was, you hear stories of kids even at 11 or 9 being very obsessed with music, having their own record collections and being very into Iron Maiden or whatever the fuck. And I didn't really have that experience. Music was kind of in the background until punk just like forced it immediately to the foreground. And then from then on in, it's just, been one of the most important things in my life for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting how different types of music can just grab people in different ways. Like, I would listen to top 40 and rap, and the alternative thing was really popping off when I was coming up, and those were all things. But once I discovered like the underground hardcore scene, that was like unlike anything else. And it sounds like you went in that direction too. So you're listening to punk, Sex Pistols. Where does it take you from there?
I mean, it just sort of very quickly moves into realizing that there are bands like Suicidal Tendencies and DRI that are even faster and harder and more pissed than, learning that, this is actually called hardcore. And then I have, I don't know, a year or two with that, where my favorite bands are Minor Threat and Uniform Choice and 7 Seconds, a lot of the straight edge, more positive bands. And I turned 17 and 18 right as Revelation Records explodes. And suddenly I have Youth of Today and Bold and Gorilla Biscuits and Judge, and just like this whole movement that I'm at the perfect age to relate to. And, that was really the stuff that changed everything for me. 17, when, 17, I'm, searching to figure out where my tribe is going to be and, what my life is going to look like, I guess. And then suddenly there's this incredible movement of young, positive, straight edge, very aggressive hardcore bands, most of them from New York. So I'm seeing them all the time up here in Boston, traveling to Connecticut and to New York to see them with friends, and just changed everything for me.
What kind of bands were you seeing when you started going to shows? Like, who was around?
The earliest, my first show was Black Flag in 1985. And then, the couple of years before, the youth crew really pops off, I'm just seeing everything. I'm seeing everything from the Circle Jerks to the Cro-Mags to Agnostic Front. I'm lucky to have a crew of friends that some of them have their licenses, and they're just, we're just going to everything. We're seeing all kinds of shows all through 86, 87, and 88. I really sort of find, the type of shows that I chiefly want to be at.
So it sounds like you saw some of the really classic stuff, which is awesome. Would you guys drive down to like CB's or anything like that?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. I was at CB's a lot. I was at the Anthrax a lot.
Nice. We would do the same thing, drive to Jersey, even up to Boston once in a while. So when did you start performing, and how? Like, was it something you wanted to do?
No, it never really felt like a calling. It was just sort of something that we realized that we could do as a further way to participate in the punk scene, and a further way to sort of deal with our aggression and angst and misguided youth. I think I was 16 when I started my first band, because some older guys had convinced us that you don't need to even really know how to play your instruments, that anyone can do it. And at that point, I was already so in love with punk and hardcore that I just wanted to, be a part of it. And my first band was called Aggressive Hate. It was a bunch of, 16-year-old kids playing breakneck, fast, noisy hardcore. And then in 87, we sort of transform into something called Raging Hope, because I'm starting to sort of figure out my musical taste a little more, and it's a little more reminiscent of things like Youth of Today. And really, so I started at 16, and I'm in a band all the way through until the early 90s. I'm singing in hardcore bands all the way through.
How many different bands were you in leading up to Bane?
I was in Aggressive Hate, Raging Hope, then a band called Backbone, and then I drummed for a little while in a band called Over Under. Yeah, that's the early 90s. And so that's it. 3 sort of terrible hardcore bands, 1 sort of post-hardcore band that I'm drumming in, and I'm not a very good drummer at all. We're just kind of like doing it to have fun, play a few shows. And then in 95, Backbone does a reunion show, and that sparks the interest of Aaron Dahlbeck, who was starting a side project of Converge, and that's where Bane is born out of.
And what about your life at that time? Like, when you're a kid and you're in bands, what is it like? I mean, were you straight edge? Did you like want to go to college? Did you think about your future at all? Like, what was going on with you?
No, I I mean, as soon as I found punk and skateboarding, like everything else went out the window. I spent a total of 2, maybe 3 weeks in a traditional high school before I was just a complete truant runaway, like no interest in furthering my education or thinking about what I was going to do next week, never mind with the rest of my life. Just full on rebellion, driving my poor parents crazy, and was just in love with the life, was in love with the music and in love with my friends and being out till 2 in the morning and being on a skateboard. And I do that all through my teens, literally. And the band thing was never an ambition. I don't even remember thinking that making a record was a possibility. You just kind of made a band to be in a band with your friends and to play shows locally. And maybe if you get lucky, which I was able to do in Backbone when I'm in a band that's like at least a little bit good. And we did get to, go and play some shows in Boston, even went to New York once or twice and played there. But no, there was never any ambition because we just didn't know it was a thing yet in the 80s. Like touring, it just felt like something that only a select few very important, like Black Flag type bands were actually pulling off. By the late 80s, we're seeing, some of the local Boston bands making their way down to New York and even, Philly and New Jersey and stuff. And so maybe that seemed kind of cool. My band Backbone never was given those opportunities. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of ambition. You wanted to be in a cool band and you wanted to play shows, and it was cool. We got to open for cool bands, and I remember that being very exciting, getting to like open for Killing Time, open for Uppercut. Those things were very exciting for us, but it's kind of where it ended for those early hardcore bands. And then in the mid-90s, when Dahlback wants to start Bane, he's gone through a 5-year period where I'm not paying attention to how much things have changed. And he has learned how to tour, how to network, that a band can just put out a 7-inch all on their own. Things that, to me, when I was a teenager, just were so foreign to me. He comes into the picture and he knows how to do this. He's been in Converge. He has had friends that have started their own independent record labels. Like, he has a confidence that I had no idea how to find. You understand what I'm saying? So Bane starts, and already the ambition is so different. It's like, oh, we're going to make actual records. We're going to do tours. You know what I'm saying? Wildly thrilling for me because, like I said, my experience years before that was none of those things seemed to be on the table as options. You didn't even think about those things.
Yeah, even in the late 90s and early 2000s, I saw a lot of bands doing that, but I still had no idea how you do it, or like, even really that it could be an option. But
right.
If all it takes is somebody like Aaron who's done it,
exactly,
and they can show you the way.
Yeah, I don't know what the trajectory of Bane would have been if we didn't have a guy like that to just have already done it. He'd already seen the blueprint and was just had the bravado to just know we're going to make this work. We made a demo, and then 4 months later he was talking about making a 7-inch, and I remember being so mind blown that it was just like, it's this easy. Now we're going to make a 7-inch. Like, my old bands would make a demo and we would live on that demo for 2 years or something. And he just wasn't about sitting around, waiting around. He knew how it had to happen. Thank God.
Did you have that same drive? Is that what you wanted to do?
No, I didn't know it was an option, honestly. In those early days, it's hard to even sort of reconcile what I really was hoping for. I was just excited to be in a band that was like, that took ourselves seriously and that sort of wanted to be a dynamic, energetic, sort of outspoken band. I'm a little older when Bane starts. I'm 25, so I'm able to sort of kind of have a better idea of like how to make up for the things that maybe I had done wrong as a teenager in bands, or, I just was, I was, just in a different place, I guess. So I never imagined how far we would be able to take it. Obviously, there was no sense that it could turn into what it has turned into, but it was the most serious band I'd ever been in. And we had some really good musicians in the band, which was the first time I've ever really been able to be like, wow, these guys are tight. The songwriting is strong. This was all kind of new for me. So I kind of went with the flow there for those first couple of years and just sort of followed the lead of the guys who seemed to know more than me. And
I think it was kind of new for the scene too, because when Bane really started breaking, the really metallic melodic metalcore thing was really popping off. So Bane was an outlier in that because it had more of the classic melodic sound, which I think was influenced a lot by Aaron trying to do something different from Converge. But what about your taste at that time? Like, were you into any of the classic Massachusetts stuff going on, or like what were you into?
I really loved Quicksand and I really loved Burn. Those were the two sort of real big ones whose influence that I was like definitely pulling into the way I decided to attack vocals for sure. Also, Swizz were huge for me. And then Ian's second band, Embrace, lyrically were like really, really important to me. They were certainly a big influence on the way I was attacking the lyrics with Bane early on. And then, there was a band here from Boston that I loved that were around in the late 80s, early 90s called Eye for an Eye. They were a huge influence for me stylistically. But when Bane started, I'm sort of, before Bane, there was a 4-year period where I wasn't paying attention to what was going on with hardcore at all. I had no idea what was happening on the front lines. There were a lot of bands that I just didn't know about. I didn't know what Victory Records was. I didn't know what Converge was when Aaron told me that he was in a band called Converge. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't realize the significance of that. So there's a lot of things happening as Bane is starting that I'm opening my eyes to, like primarily the band Unbroken, but also a band called Undertow, a band called Outspoken, that were very exciting, but I don't know if they were influencing the way I was attacking being in Bane. Certainly not to the same level that Quicksand or Burn were. Those bands were like huge for me.
Yeah, I would have never drawn that parallel before, but now when I imagine early Quicksand vocals and your vocals, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see like that.
That's the big influence in the way I attack the vocals, like rhythmically, being willing to be a little bit off time and stuff like that, that he really is just so good at.
So Bane starts to get rolling, and if I remember correctly from what Zach and Aaron told me, like things picked up pretty quick, right? Like people were into it from the beginning. The early shows, people were into it. Do you have that same memory?
I do. We were pretty determined early on. We were going to shows and passing out our demo for about 3 months before we play our first show, and we're just giving them to everyone. I remember going to a New Year's show in New Haven, a Snapcase show where we probably passed out 100 demos to just anyone that would take them. We tried to put the word out there before our first show, and I believe it helped. I really do believe it helped. And then our first show, we got lucky. We got to open for Cast Iron Hike, who were, the biggest band from Central Massachusetts at the time, played at a very popular venue, so it was going to be packed. And we were kind of up for the task, We really gave it our all that first show and wanted to leave a strong first impression. And I've always believed it sort of snowballed from there, We took it seriously right off the bat. And there were a lot of kids coming to shows at that time. And, 95, 96, the scene around here was slammed. There was just a lot of kids coming to gigs. There were a lot of cool bands. Piebald and Cave-In and Converge were enormous. And so we were lucky. We got lucky right off the bat to be able to have that be our first show. And from there, most of the shows locally were pretty well attended and kids were going off.
So by 98, 99, that's around the time I discovered this music. Bane was sort of already a household name. By 98, we had
the EPs.
Yes, the EP collection. I knew about that. And then by 99, we had It All Comes Down to This. And that certainly set things off. But yeah, leading up to, let's talk about It All Comes Down to This. We know that there's a 25th anniversary edition out now that's been remastered. And I saw Zach post about it, and he had not nice things to say about the original recording. He said, that he just hated it all these years. He didn't like how the recording came out. How did you feel about it? Now, I love that record. I loved that record when it came out, and it's not like my favorite recording ever, but I don't remember hating it. Like, oh, I can't listen to this. What did you think of it?
I mean, I was not happy with it. I share in Zach's thoughts for sure. But the interesting thing about it all comes down to this: is it just what I've come to learn throughout the years is it doesn't matter how we feel about the recording or the performances or my, I'm very, very displeased with my vocal performance. But I meet people like you all the time who claim to have really loved that record, and I have no place to try to talk them out of that. I'm always fascinated to know how old you were when you discovered it. That's sort of the question that I ask when someone is like, "Oh, I can't believe you don't love It All Comes Down to This. That's my favorite Bane record." I don't want to argue with them and tell them, "Oh no, this record is better." You know, I get it. The records that I loved at a certain age, it didn't matter what they fucking sounded like or how their performances were. It mattered how old they were and that it was resonating with me on a different level than like quote unquote quality, I love when I talk to people that say, "Oh, that's the record for me. That's the one that got me into you guys." And it's a strange sort of thing. I'm not going to try to talk you out of your personal relationship with It All Comes Down to This. You don't hear it the same way I hear it. I don't want to alter the way you see it, and I don't think you could ever hear it the way I'm hearing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a funny thing. It is my least favorite Bane record. It is. I mean, I think I can safely say it's my number one regret. If I could undo one thing through the history of Bane, well, maybe the thing I would undo is I wouldn't have gone along with breaking the band up. But other than that, I think that we could have just we would have been smarter to record our first LP with the person who recorded our first 3 7-inches and who knew the band as well as he knew the band and had sort of done right by us. Those 3 7-inches all sound good. I'm proud of the way that those came out. And instead we go with a different guy who's local, who's done a Converge record, who's kind of a legend in his own little world. He's in that band Today Is the Day. That shit doesn't mean anything to me, but it seemed to really mean something to Aaron Dahlback. He's going to give us a good deal. And so we go to see what it was going to be like. And it was just kind of a disaster, to be honest. He doesn't push us the way we need to be pushed. We're all still very young. The only person that's ever made an LP before is Dahlback, and he's not a take charge kind of guy at all. So we're just all sort of like floundering, and we have a lot of ambitious ideas that we don't really know how to get to come together. And Steve, the guy who's recording it, he's not there to do that. This wasn't like a big passion project for him. The way some years later, when we go in to record Give Blood with Brian McTiernan, we see what it's like to have the guy behind the board be the 6th member of the band, and that the songs mean as much to him as they do to us. And he's taking them home with him, and he's thinking deeply about them. And it's then that we realize, holy shit, man, this is the way our first LP should have been handled. But yeah, I just don't think it sounds good. And I think that I should have, I'm not a very good singer unless there's people there kicking my ass and making me do take after take after take and pushing my voice and finding the right tones. I'm not a good self-editor. I will say, "Oh, that's good. Everyone's happy with that. Let's move on," which is what we do over and over and over again. And it all comes down to this. And when we go to record Give Blood, there's literally, "No, that sucks. Do it again. That sucks. Do it again." And I keep pushing it until it's right. And that was hard and it was frustrating. We're all beating our heads against the wall because every one of our performances were pushed to that level. But the record comes out sounding amazing. And still all these years later, we stand by that performance. We're very proud of that record. We're not able to feel that same way about It All Comes Down to This. But again, that stuff doesn't matter. If the songs are hitting a 16, a 17, or 18-year-old in the right way, then it doesn't matter that the guitars don't sound heavy or that my vocal performance isn't all that strong, which is one of the beautiful things about hardcore, is that it doesn't have to be played 5 stars. It can be played just with some degree of urgency and honesty, and so it can become some kid's favorite record. And I do love that.
Yeah, it's a time and place thing, because I heard that record when I was 17, 18 for the first time, and Bane shows were unlike any other shows at the time. It was, they were just wild, and everyone went off unlike anything else, and pretty much unlike anything else I've ever seen since then, which is great. It wasn't like, well, sometimes it was crowd killing and fights if you were in the right city, but a lot of times it wasn't like that. It was just fun. It was like you knew you could get in the mix and not get killed, and that was fun. That was something I really liked. And yeah, Yeah, that's the thing though. Like even when people do like the 20th anniversary remaster, or they remaster and they're like, oh, we redid it, it sounds better now. I'll usually listen to it once and then go back to like the shitty one because that's what I'm used to from like 20 years ago.
That's been my thinking lately. Like, it's good that we did this and that we prettied it up or whatever, but I think the people who really love the record are just gonna love it because they, it's like almost like a time machine record for them. It brings them back to a certain time in their lives, and those, they need those tones, they need those imperfections.
Yeah, there's one record that I actually like. I stick with the newer one, and that's the Converge record you were talking about, When Forever Comes Crashing, that Steve also recorded.
Oh, did they redo that record? I didn't know.
Kurt remixed it, and I do like Kurt's remix better, so I stick with that one.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he is. So, yeah, so it all comes down to this comes out. Now, it sounds like we weren't so happy with the recording, but, I mean, you must have seen how crazy things got at that time. I'll never forget those pile-ons, those sing-alongs, hearing Can We Start Again, and the whole venue chanting that. I mean, that must have all been amazing, right?
It was pretty incredible. Yeah, things do definitely start to change immediately after that record comes out. Shows really start to change. Our responses get just way more exciting, and for sure. And then we're just on the road a lot. We just sort of like kick it into high gear. The LP is out and we do a bunch of touring, and yeah. And it gives us Can We Start Again? Our most beloved song is on that record. I can only be so mad at that record. Because, it does give us Can We Start Again?
Right. When you wrote that song, do you remember writing that song? Like, what were you going through? What kind of things did you see? Because I always had mixed feelings about the scene to some degree, and I liked when people kind of did interesting commentary on it like you did in that song.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I'm 29 years old, and I've been in and around the hardcore scene for a long, long time, and I can see some of the shortcomings and some of the things that are very disappointing to me, some of the pettiness and some of the violence. And I mean, yeah, I do remember writing most of that song on a van ride on the way down to play a show in Long Island or somewhere in New York, but certainly there was no sense that like, oh, this is going to be a special one, or that I was like reaching some new height lyrically. I was just, I was writing about the scene and what I was trying to make a very sort of honest and earnest way of just talking about what my journey was into it, and that I believe that things, can always be better. But those lyrics are written and we don't have the music ready. We don't know that Can We Start Again is going to be a chorus that repeats itself. Sort of the writing of those lyrics, there was no sense that, oh, this is going to turn into something special, honestly. And still to this day, I'm still fascinated at the idea is what makes a chorus so sing-alongable for people. Is it what the lyric is? Is it what the timing is? Is it the riff? I'm still sort of like fascinated by that. Like, what is it that made that one take so well? Is it the words that they're singing, the meaning behind the words that kind of vaulted the song to the next level? Or is it the rhythmically how we're doing it? I don't know the answer, but I'm always fascinated by it.
You can never plan those things, right? Because whenever I write something and I'm like, this is going to be the best thing ever, it isn't. And then it just happens.
It's so absolutely true.
But I think for that, as an outsider, for that song in particular, I think it's the cadence. It's like a nice rhythm, right? And it's like nice, simple words that we can all relate to. And it's just fun to say over and over again. So Bane is legendary for the amount of touring that you did over the years. You guys, I think I remember Zach saying like 6 months out on the road was just standard, right?
Yeah. There are a lot of bands who went harder than we did. I think it's a little bit of an illusion that we went so hard, but we were banned for a lot of years. And for all of those years, we did try to be on the road. We loved to be out there. We loved to be on tour. But I don't know. It never felt like, I step back and see what Terror does and know that like there's no year where we would have been able to survive a typical Terror year. We still needed our time at home and people still had things going on at home. So I guess maybe it was 6 is still only half the year. It's not like we were out there all the time. There may have been 1 or 2 years where we went very, very, very hard, but I don't really remember them.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the 2000s I don't remember, you know?
Yeah. It all started to blur together at some point. The deal is we just stayed a band for so long. We stayed a touring band from basically 99 up until 2016. We were out there. There weren't years that we really took off and didn't not go on the road.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about because like the entire evolution of me discovering this music up until like 2016, you were out there still. So you saw everything change. You saw the major labels sweep and the mainstream emo thing, and then like all the way to 2016, which was like the beginning of this new like new metal / hardcore hybrid thing that's going to great heights. Like you just existed through everything.
Yeah. I feel like I saw lots of cycles come and go. Things would just keep repeating themselves in a strange way.
Being around that long, did you become disillusioned with it? Were you like, I'm sick of this music, I'm sick of these shows? I mean, how did you feel about it over the years?
No, that's part of the problem is that I wasn't able to sort of emotionally evolve past being very wide-eyed and romantic about the whole thing. I just could never fall out of love with it the way that I almost feel like maybe you're supposed to when you reach a certain fucking age. You're supposed to start to become more enamored with other aspects of life, whether it's family or career or something. And I just was very stunted in there. I just felt very safe. I loved it. I loved it so much. You know, I feel like I've written so many songs and I've given so many interviews where I've gone over the spiel about how much it meant to me, how it saved my life and changed my life, that I start to get sick of hearing myself say the words, but it's really true. I just loved it, unlike anything else that came along. And I think I kind of liked being on the run a lot, you know? I just liked being on the move and not knowing what tomorrow was going to bring, and sort of having this group of friends around me that had replaced, you know, my family in a very sort of real way. And this feeling that we were sort of exploring the world together, you know, and being able to express ourselves through music that we worked very, very hard to write. And there was just a real romance in there that I was never, I mean, that's why we're back. I was never able to get shut of it. I couldn't get it out of my blood. You know, even in 2016, when it was all coming to an end, none of us were actually ready. I wasn't emotionally ready. I wasn't intellectually ready to really face what it was going to mean to not have this thing anymore that had become my life, you know? No, honestly, there was never a time where I was like, God, why am I still doing this? This music is childish. What am I doing in another fucking 16-hour van ride? That stuff never happened to me. And I saw it happen to a lot of people around me, so I understood that it was a thing. And I certainly didn't think that they were wrong and I was better than them. It was fascinating to me to see people grow out of it and start families and just like leave that behind. And I still felt fucking like I did that first year, where it was just so exciting and what I wanted to do. And I had to get like deep into therapy. My therapist had to like explain to me, like, you found the thing that you love. This is one of the missions in life, is to find the thing in life that you love to do. You're so lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned that the music saved your life. How so? Like, and you're talking about therapy. I mean, what was going on with you that?
I mean, I had a brutal childhood for sure. There was a lot of abuse, sexual abuse from family members. Like by the time I'm a teenager, I'm a fucked up kid with piles of trauma, and I have no idea what that means. No one's telling me you're traumatized. You know, I don't learn this stuff until I'm in my 40s, revisiting my teenage years and crying because I'm realizing, holy fucking shit, this poor kid was fucked up. At the time, I don't know it, but like the music gives me an outlet, the aggression involved, the feeling of rebellion, and being able to sort of, replace a very dysfunctional family with this idea that these kids are my family, these friends. And it's always been that way. You know, as soon as I had my little crew of skateboard friends, I would have died for them. Like loyalty and honor was everything to me as far back as I can remember. And I never get shut of that. It only gets more intense. My friend groups become more intimate to me. And by the time Bane starts and we're out there traveling all over the world, literally carrying each other through whatever the hell we're going through, it just was like, you couldn't convince me that this isn't my actual family. I would do anything for these people, and I know they would do anything for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I went through my own stuff when I was young, and then there was years and years of addiction and alcoholism, and then finally I snapped out of that coma when I was a lot older. And it's like, then you have to like sift through the wreckage of the past and figure all this stuff out. And this music, this scene has been a savior for me too, because
dude, it's so fucking crazy to hear you say that.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, it taught me the ideals I have. My best friends are still in that scene. I could have been way more out of control if I wasn't involved with it, probably. So like, what about you? Like, how do you figure out that you need to see a therapist, and what do you do? How do you find one?
Yeah, I can answer all that. In 2014, we decide that we're going to put out one last record. We're going to do 2 years of heavy touring, and we're going to hang it up. We're going to call it quits. It's becoming clear that we can't keep the pace that we used to keep, and I am not able to sort of downshift and to do this part-time. So I do this really fucked up fight or flight thing where I put them to the decision, well, then why don't we just break? Well, if we can't go the way we've always gone, then I want to break up. Terrible thing to do. I will regret it for the rest of my life, but it is what I do. And it is what spurs the Don't Wait Up chapter of Bane. We start to write what is going to be a farewell record. And we now have 2 years to get right with the idea that we're all fucking walking away from this. And we decide that we are going to hang that this is farewell out there, so everyone feels a new urgency to come be a part of Bane again. You know what I'm saying? We like use it as we willingly tell people, look, we're only coming through a couple more times, so come and say goodbye to us. We play on their love for this band. We make them have to come and say goodbye to us.
Right, because things had slowed down a bit, right? Not as many people at shows. There was a Euro tour, I think, that didn't go as well as we had hoped.
Yep, but it's not just the Euro tour. It's the overall sort of feeling of like, it's been a long time since we put out an LP, and we've just been a band for a very, very long time. And it's just, suddenly places where we used to kind of really be able to rely on to have great shows were becoming lukewarm to bad. It wasn't always bad. It wasn't all bad. There were some surprises, but it was like starting to feel like our time was starting to run short unless we do something special. And instead of saying, oh, why don't we just, make a new record, or, we'll sit and rethink, or maybe we'll take ourselves off the road for a couple of years and then people will be excited when we come back. Instead of doing that, we decided to break the band up and make that very public. Like, this is it. These are going to be the final tours. And in that, I get scared. Obamacare kicks in for me. For the first time in my life, I have insurance. And somehow in the back of my head, I knew I needed to find help. I knew even before I go like get my knees looked at, even before I go, well, no, I'm actually leaving out a key component here, is through the writing of Don't Wait Up, I write a song called Wrong Planet, which addresses the abuse that I went through. I write a song where I literally say, look, some really fucked up shit happened to me when I was a kid. Now, this was something I didn't talk about with anyone. None of the guys in my band knew. I didn't tell the people in my life that I'd gone through this as a child. I had told one girlfriend only, and certain family members knew about it. My brother had gone through it too. He knew about it, but it was really a thing that I kept fucking locked away for all my life. And then in writing Don't Wait Up, I'm sort of faced with the feeling like, this is it. These may be the last songs that you ever write. Make them count. Like, this is it. No more fucking around. You need to say all the things you want to say. And somehow I get really brave and decide, well, fuck, let's talk about that. Let's write a song addressing that. And then it's become scary because suddenly the secret is going to be out there. And now everyone is going to know. And I'm going to have conversations like this with guys like you talking about something that is a very dark secret to me. And I realize I probably need to find a therapist, that I'm fucking scared and I'm not sure not only how the world is going to react to when the song is out there, but what I have to get ready for life without Bane. I have to really prepare And I was starting to have like, they were distant, but they were like suicidal thoughts. There were thoughts of like, if I don't have this, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I know that's not okay. So I sort of, some self-preservation takes over, and I find a therapist in 2014. And she kind of goes along for the ride of the last 2 years with me and gives me the necessary tools to be able to start to process this. And exactly like you said, it was a lot of going back and sifting through some real rubble and realizing how I've turned into the person that I've turned into today based on the things that I went through as a child, you know? So I get very lucky. I mean, it's probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me, even beyond Bane. I think finding a therapist who's really fucking good at her job and really helps me start to connect the dots and start to see where a lot of my insecurities come from, where the whole fight or flight thing really stems from, helps me, start a new chapter in my life. Honestly, like I'm a different person than I was pre-therapy for sure. So I get lucky. I mean, I'm lucky that I was able to get the free insurance. I could have never afforded medical insurance on my own. I was lucky that Obamacare was out there, and I went through the necessary steps to fucking find someone to help me.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to do that. And I'm curious about people's journey, how they do it. Like I got lucky too. Like someone recommended me an addiction psychologist who I still see and do some psychotherapy stuff with. And it was like pure luck, because I remember like cold calling psychologists on my lunch break and everyone being like, we don't take patients, we don't take patients, we don't take your insurance. So it's like, even if you want to get help, it's like so hard to even do that. But like, that's the thing, right? Is you're going. You've been doing this band your entire life. So it's fortunate that you had the foresight to see like, wait, this is going to end. I need to handle this.
Yeah. I was scared. I could feel it. I could feel that things were going to get real fucking off. And luckily I find her. Luckily she's able to kind of right the ship. And by the time Bane is coming to an end, I'm 2 years into some real deep, heavy therapy. And I'm not going to say it was easy to go through those last Bane shows and say goodbye to the band, but I was at least somewhat prepared for it thanks to the work that we had done together, for sure.
So after Bane ended, what did you do?
I mean, I sat for a while, for a good year, just sort of tried to see how I felt about it and didn't like it at all, and went through all degrees of sadness and regret and trying to figure out what to do next. And then I started another hardcore band. I have a friend who sort of like recommends that we maybe just start something small here in Boston. I started a band called Antagonize and get to do that for, I guess about 2 years. We do this little band that played some weekends and did make a record and put it out on Triple B. And it was fun to be in a band that was sort of very different than Bane. And the music was much more aggressive. The songs were shorter. But at the same time, there was a lot of realizing, wow, this isn't Bane in a negative way. And, there's really only one Bane. You really only get to hit a home run like that once. And there were a lot of reminders that while being in this band is fun, it's not my band. It doesn't, it's not working the way that I'm used to a band working. And that band lasts until COVID comes. And then that just kind of like puts a natural end to that band. But yeah, I'd say there was a really tough year of a lot of sadness and a lot of just trying to figure out how am I going to move on and not be the guy in Bane anymore. And then, the Antagonized thing was kind of a nice little Band-Aid to get me through. And then the COVID starts and everything gets really crazy. And our friend Stu gets sick. And suddenly I'm around all the Bane guys again a lot. And that slowly segues into us finding a way to being a band again.
Had you kept in touch with the other guys from Bane prior to putting together the Stu McGuire benefit?
We were close, yeah. Every member of that band was at Antagonize's first show. Every member of Bane came to Antag's first show. Most of the guys do live up here, and we're good about getting together. So, yeah, we were seeing a good amount of each other for sure. James, Zach, and I do a kind of fun little road trip there in the early days of COVID where we drove down the East Coast, stopping at different people's houses to buy record collections for James's record store down in Jacksonville. And it was the three of us in a van staying in hotels again. And it was very sort of nostalgic. But yeah, we all stayed close. not as close as we are now, but there was never a feeling that those guys were too far out of reach.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I'm happy when people can be mature and break ups and stay friends. I couldn't always do it. I still can't do it sometimes, but it's nice when that can happen.
It can be difficult. I think part of the reason why it seemed natural for a Bane to start playing shows again is because we all still hang. We all still love being around each other. Like, it wasn't like the band broke up and everyone went off to their own separate corners and, began their new lives. We still were having cookouts and going to movies and hanging out. And I remember Bobby, we would make little jokes about maybe doing it again someday. And I remember Bobby being like, my drums are still set up in the basement. And I was like, are they? He's like, I'm show ready. He said, he's ready to get back on the drums. There was always a feeling that we were just together still, And then Stu getting sick really intensifies all of that, where we all suddenly really come in to being together all the time again.
Right. He was putting together a bucket list show, and he wanted Bane to play, and he wanted to play with you guys if he could, right?
If he could. I mean, that was the real sort of, wouldn't it be amazing if he had the strength to get up there and play Superhero or something? That was really the hope.
That must have been an incredibly emotional time, not only just playing the show, but so sadly, he passed. He ended up dying a week before the show. So, I mean, even saying it, I'm getting emotional. So, I can't imagine what all of you guys went through.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was an incredibly, incredibly heavy time. And James, our bass player, he used the word bittersweet when we actually got to play the show. And it seemed like the perfect word for what it was, because, what it was kind of wonderful for sure to be playing Bane songs again and to have this kind of thing that I'd missed for so many years back again. There was just such a heavy duty layer of sadness to it all, to all of it. Stu and then his family and his kids, and then seeing, people Bobby, our drummer, was his best friend. Seeing Bobby sad makes me sad. There was just all these insane layers to it. That week there where we start practicing, we're crying at practice even before Stu was gone. We're crying because we're fucking playing Speechless together again, something that we hadn't done in so many years. And then, Stu goes really quickly, and then there's the show, and then there's a Red Sox game that we all go to where they have his name on the screen. I'm with Stu. There was just a lot. There was a week there where I was just white knuckling it all the way through it,
Yeah, that's something I didn't necessarily consider as well. Not only the emotional impact of losing your friend, but the emotional impact of Bane just being together and playing again after 5-6 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Super, super heavy for me.
Do you remember playing that show, that benefit show? That must have been intense.
It was intense. It was really hard in that it wasn't a typical sort of setup. We're playing behind a barrier on a very high stage in a house of blues. That's just not going to have the sort of intimacy that is what I really need to thrive on. And I'm real out of shape. We're a year into COVID. I tried to do the best I could to quickly get into shape over the course of the 2 months. But so, I'm heavier than I want to be, and I don't have the stamina that I certainly needed to have for that big ass stage. And we start the show by playing a sound clip of Stu in the documentary that they made about us holding these moments. He gives sort of a speech of what it meant to be in that band, and they play that voiceover over the PA while we're getting ready to go on stage, and we do a little sort of powwow, and I just fall apart. I'm when I crawl on the stage, I'm sobbing. I'm not really emotionally ready to just sing a bunch of hardcore songs. I'm so deeply, deeply sad. And Zach kind of gives us this may be it. Let's give it everything we have. And then there's this added pressure that we may never do this again. And it just, all of those things sort of collapse on themselves in a way where I don't personally have a great show, but we make a lot of people happy. No one knew that we were going to be playing that day. It was a surprise. So that's kind of cool. The hardcore kids who did happen to be there are very, very excited, and it was good. But after it was over, I was hungry to play a real Bane show, to play a show that wasn't so weighed down with all of this other fucking extra stuff,
Right.
was an emotional day for sure. But I'm so glad we did it, and it was a beautiful day and a beautiful tribute to Stu for sure.
I mean, it was the major catalyst of you guys coming back, right?
Sometimes I think that I wrestle with it. Like, would have we found our way back to here anyway? But for me, for sure, it was the idea that we had told a lot of people we're never going to play again. Like, I looked people in the eye and said, no, you don't know me. If I say we're not doing it, we're not doing it. And like really hammered home the idea that this is it. And I have a hard time going back on my word. I have a really hard time. If I say something, it's difficult for me to just turn my back on that. And suddenly I was faced with something that I really wanted to turn my back on. I really did not want those words to be true anymore. And then suddenly there's this sort of asterisk where Stu asks us to play a show. No world where we're going to say no to that. We play the show, and then the Band-Aid is ripped off. I've already gone back on the thing that I said I would never do. So if we're going to play one show, we could play a fucking 100 shows is the thinking. For me personally, it like got me over a mental hump that I had been wrestling with. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, because I'm stubborn. So if I say something, even if it like completely inconveniences me and isn't how I feel anymore, I'll stick with it just to stick with my word. So that's why my rule is now I try to never say never, because things change. Like we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We just don't know.
Yeah, that's very wise.
Yeah. I'm still amazed between The Note, which came out in 2005, and Don't Wait Up, 2014. No new record that whole time. Was touring good enough that whole time that like we didn't want to write a new record? Zach said that you guys, well, these were his words. He said we were lazy and it just took a long time to write music. Tell me about it from your perspective.
No, that's exactly the truth. It's not that the road was keeping us so occupied. We are just a band that has such a bad work ethic. We'll do it if it's like easy, but when it's like, it takes a lot of coordination and it takes a lot of creative energy, we will put that off until the absolute last moment. And we do write 6 songs in that window that we put out as these 7 inches that we passed out to a lot of different labels around the world. But yeah, it is way too long to go without a new record. And yeah, it's just sort of the years just kind of flew by, and suddenly you just realize, Jesus, has it really been 8 years since The Note came out or whatever the fuck it was? But he's not lying to you. It really is just, we don't have a very good work ethic still to this day. It's just like, we're not good at all, just like locking in and being like, we have to work hard now for whatever the stretch of time it is. If we can instead go get a buffet and go to the movies and kick our feet up at a hotel at the end of the day, we're going to choose that every fucking time.
Yeah. And writing songs is hard. Maybe it's easy for some people, but I find it emotionally and physically and taxing to get everybody on the same page and get it done.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah, it's hard. I see some real beauty in it, and I do love that process even more than I love the recording side of things. I do love the creating and the being in the practice space and trying really hard to fill the blank page with something special and something beautiful. I do think it's an important part of being in a band, but it is not easy.
Not at all. So the newly remastered, it all comes down to this. Brian McTernan got the original tapes and remixed it. How do you feel about it now? Better?
I mean, I feel the same, honestly. I feel just about the same. I'm not a big sort of like go back and fix the past guy. I would have rather put the energy into writing even one new song. To me, would be far more thrilling and far more sort of important. But it was important for Aaron Dahlbeck. I mean, for sure. It was something that he really, really wanted to see through. And I can't begrudge him of that. I didn't take I wasn't too involved in any of it, but I was able to hear some of the songs remastered and they sound incredible. I mean, they really, really do sound cool. I don't know if it's going to move the needle much. I don't really know. We're not talking about dusting off 3 of those songs and starting to, add them into the set list. That doesn't seem to be happening. And it's just sort of like, I kind of agree with what you were saying earlier, is that generally you're going to go with the original because the original is just, it's baked into your DNA. It's like part of your history. And I don't know if like some new kid who's into fucking Drain and Tsunami are going to go check out it all comes down to this and have this be like a big deal to them. I'm just not sure what that record is going to provide for us, other than a feeling of, oh, this is what it could have sounded like, you know. But still, my vocal performances are my vocal performances. I still very much needed somebody to kick me in the ass, because I know that I can sing better than that. And I know I can sing harder than I do on that record. And I didn't, you know. And there's no magic tricks that are going to undo that. We just have to live with it. That was our first record. And luckily, our second record, it fucking slams, you know. And we're so lucky to have been able to follow that up quickly with Give Blood.
That's another classic. I guess you felt a lot better about that, right? We've got McTernan at the helm. I mean, he sounds like a guy who really gets in there and gives you great direction. Did you had that the second time around?
Incredibly. Yeah. I mean, he never openly said this to us, but I think he resented it very deeply that we didn't record our first LP with him. He would have felt like it was his right to record Bane's first LP. He had done our demo. He had recorded everything we had ever recorded up to that point. And then we just go with this other dude and like, don't give it to him. And so then when we come to him with tails between our legs 2 years later, he is looking to make a real point to show us what a fucking hardcore record can sound like when he's behind the board and putting his foot in our ass the way he did. And it's I'll die and it'll be the piece of art that I'm most proud of, Give Blood, that, you know, based on how much he cared and how hard he forced us to work. He forced us all way the fuck out of our comfort zones to dig deeper than we'd ever dug before. And like, the proof is in the pudding. I still am very proud of that record.
What kind of stuff does Brian do? Does he make suggestions for song arrangements? Like, what kind of stuff does he do?
Some for sure. You know, Brian sang in a hardcore band called Battery, you know, another sort of more melodic, more spirited. So he knows what we're trying to do. He speaks the exact same language that we speak. And I was a big Battery fan. I looked up to him to a degree for sure. So yeah, if he said he thinks that maybe try it this way, I was down to try it this way. But he wasn't trying too hard to restructure the songs. We came in with those songs pretty well practiced and they were pretty done. With the note, there are a couple songs that he kind of gets in there and really does have us rethink and restructure. And Zach and I are doing some stuff in studio, rewriting some lyrics and reworking on some parts. But I don't remember that from Give Blood. What he did with Give Blood is he just was not satisfied until the take was right. It's as simple as that. He had some stupid little fucking recorder toy that he could record a statement into and it would play it back when he pressed a button. And he just said, "That sucks, do it again." And he would play that fucking recorder into my headphones when I was doing vocal takes, to the point where I wanted to jam that thing right down his throat. But it's really, and there's stories of Nick, our drummer at the time, like having to storm out of the studio, red-faced, frustrated, wanting to punch a hole through the wall. He had a very Irish temper, Nick, because Brian just was not satisfied. He wanted more from all of us. And that's what he brought to the table. At least my recollection, you know, I'm not in there when they're doing the guitar takes, but my recollection is he just was not going to be satisfied until he felt like we had done our best take. And those took a long fucking time. He pushed us and pushed us and pushed us to get the performances down. And then he just worked his own magic there by the board. He made all the tones bright. The snare on Give Blood sounds fucking incredible. You know, he did his, and he's apexing now as a engineer, you know, like he's going to go on from Give Blood and start recording the Thrices and the Thursdays and the Hot Water Musics of the world. We get him when he's really starting to explode creatively and understand the full depth of his powers.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize quite how he had done until I did this show. And then I ended up having all these bands on. They've all recorded with Brian. When I was at Furnace Fest, I heard at least 4 Brian McTernan shout outs. He's just legendary.
Yeah, he's the best.
That's amazing that he had that approach. I think that's what you need in the studio. If you can get that, that's a great thing, because I don't know about you, but when I'm in the studio, I'm in a fog. I don't know what's going on. I'm tired. I don't know if the take's good. I don't know if it's bad. I need someone to tell me like that's bad or that's good.
I am exactly that way. I have no idea. And I want it to be over so badly that I will just take, if anyone tells me, yeah, that's pretty good, I'm taking the headphones off and walking out of the room. And yeah, that's not great, you know? Luckily, by the time we record Don't Wait Up, Zach now knows that's what I need, you know? So even though we don't record Don't Wait Up with Brian, Zach knows, you know, based on the years of being in the band with me, the sort of kick in the ass that I need. And we don't let me out of the studio until we get the.
Did Zach take over that role for Brian?
He did, absolutely. At least with me vocally. I mean, Jay, you know, did his own thing, and Jay was amazing. And I can't take anything away from him, but Zach knew for sure what I needed. Absolutely. He knew what it's going to take for me to get the best vocal takes. And that's fucking keeping me in there with those headphones on my head and doing it again and again.
Right. So the recent tour with Terra, it looks like that went really well. I was at the Brooklyn date. Amazing show. How was it?
It was so fun. That was one of my favorite shows that we've played since we've been playing shows again. It wasn't really a tour with Terra. We only did the 2 shows with Terra. We did New Jersey the night before. Oh no, it was 3. I'm sorry. We do Brooklyn, and then they come and they play in Providence with us at a club called the Living Room. But yeah, I mean, of that little 9-day run, I would say that Brooklyn show was my favorite as far as just energy in the room, and it was real cool.
Yeah, I love that spot. And it's conveniently close to home, so that's always good too.
Did you get to say hi to some of the guys that you'd interviewed previously? Did you get to see Dahlbeck or Zach at all?
I got to, all right, my friend, I think you might know my friend John Lane, drummer from Kansas.
Yeah, I love John. Oh, hell yeah. I saw him at the gig.
He's in my band. We are in a band together called Memory Entry. So I saw him talking to you, but I didn't want to interrupt. But then I saw him talking to Zach later, and I was like, oh, now's my chance. So I was like, hey, Zach, you were on my show. And I don't think I said, no, I didn't get to say hi to the other Aaron, but I did say hi to Scott because he was on recently too from Terror. So
yeah, I love John, man. John goes all the way back. He's fucking original Bane.
He's the #1 Bane listener. He loves it.
He's been riding hard for us for a long time, man. I love that cat.
Awesome person.
Yeah, I love him.
So how about the future of Bane? Have we sat down and tried to write anything new? Do we want to? Like, what's the plan, if there is one?
I mean, the plan is to sort of take it slow and to not overwhelm ourselves and to really try to enjoy what's happening while it's happening. There has been more and more rustling about possibly trying to write a song or two. Some of the guys are really sort of scared. You know, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to come back as a band and to be putting out not good music, which a lot of bands do tend to do when they leave for 10 years and they come back generally not with their best stuff. We feel like we left off pretty strong with Don't Wait Up, and we only want to write music if we feel like it's going to stand up to that, you know, sort of level. And some of the guys are scared. I personally am not afraid. I feel really challenged at this task. I think that Zach is such an incredible songwriter that I just feel like we're going to surprise ourselves. You know, if we fucking sit down and that kid digs deep inside himself, I feel like I'm ready to do the same thing lyrically. I think we can come up with something special. I don't know if there's a whole LP there. I really don't. It may be 2 songs, maybe 1 song. I don't really know, but I would love to try. Some of the guys are like a little more afraid, and we had a kind of a good talk there towards the end of our most recent tour in the West Coast about, you know, I don't think I have to air it all out, but we did have a talk about maybe trying, you know, maybe not missing out on the opportunity because we're lucky to be the band that we are. And, you know, like, I think we can make something special still.
Right. It doesn't hurt to try, right? Because we can write a song and not necessarily release it.
Right. The thing is that does anyone know that it's not good? Do any of the people that are writing the songs that they're putting out that we're going to say are sort of metalcore and not their best material, are they aware of how bad it is? That when you're actually the guy making the stuff, are you even going to know? That was part of the conversation that we had.
That's the question, right?
I don't know either, but I do know that we did start to talk about it a little bit more seriously recently. I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to keep harping at it. I just feel like, you know, when Bane was gone, part of what I missed was the idea that how beautiful it is to be in a band and get to put your voice out into the world, to be able to make things, to be able to create things from scratch. There's something so special about that, and not everyone gets to do it. And beyond all of the sort of accolades and the sing-alongs and the, oh, your band is legendary, beyond all that bullshit, like, we got to create, we got to like grow something out of nothing. And some people never get to do that their whole lives. In our last record, we're still proving that we're pretty good at doing that. We're pretty good at getting into the rehearsal space and writing something memorable. I think there's like 4 or 5 truly great songs that are on Don't Wait Up. Certainly Calling Hours I would consider to be a very, very fucking special song. And I just don't want to believe that like that's gone from us, that the ability to make something like that is past us. I think that we're lucky that the band is lucky to have the musicianship that it has in there. So I'm challenged. We'll see. But other than that, we're back. We're going to continue to play shows, and I'm going to continue to just really try to pinch myself and be very in the moment and looking around at how special it is to be able to be doing all of this stuff again. Because when it was gone, I was so mad at myself that I'd let it slip through my fingers, that a big part of all of this lately is just a new opportunity to enjoy it all.
It feels like those are the times now. A lot of bands are coming back. A lot of new bands are starting. I feel more of a kinship with friends in this scene and new friends that I make. It just feels like a kind of a special time right now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I certainly do feel that as well. There's been a lot of just like overwhelmingly emotional, tiny little moments that feel so profound and so special to me, to be going through some of the stuff that we're going through together again, sort of as a band. Like, holy shit, look, I look around me and I have my band back, and it's really been nice.
Do you still write? Like, do you still write lyrics? Do you have like stuff in the bank?
I've never been a guy who writes lyrics just for the sake of writing lyrics. I do write lines down, or sort of loose ideas that I'll have that I won't want to lose. And I keep a notepad in my phone of things that I can go back to, and maybe it will spur something in my head. But I've never been a dude who sat and wrote a song just to write a song and hope that eventually some music will be written for me to add this to. I do it the opposite way. When there's a song waiting, then I fucking get to work. Unless we're writing a record. There have been times where, okay, we know that we're in the record writing cycle now, and then I write as much as I can. Then I am sort of there. I remember during Don't Wait Up, there would be times where I would like have to get off my bicycle and sit on a curb and like get those thoughts out of my head immediately. I remember feeling very excited by that. But what's happened recently is I started writing a novel in 2020. So I've been writing constantly for 4.5 years now, almost every single day. Not quite every day, but I started writing something bigger and more serious. So I feel my pen right now feels strong, and I'm dying to try to write some lyrics, but it would just kill me to write lyrics if they were just going to sit there. I've never been able to emotionally do it, to write the lyrics and just sort of hope eventually this will find its way to a song. I can't do it.
Right.
Are you a lyricist? Do you write lyrics in your band?
Yeah, in me and John's band, I play guitar and sing, and I do it the same way as you. I don't like sit and journal and then have stuff to pull from. Writing lyrics is really hard. It's like I do it begrudgingly, so I wait until the song is done, which I shouldn't, and then I write it.
I'm the same way. I've never been a dude who's like heard the song and been like, oh, I'm going to write the lyrics to these melodies or anything like that. It's never been me either.
I want to. I'm going to start trying to do that because I need to know that I can play and sing the song before the song is written. Because I've written a whole song and then I'm like, wait, can I actually play and sing this? And then that's a whole other thing to learn that.
Right. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with that. That's never been an experience that I've had where I've been also personally involved with the musical aspect of it and seeing how these two things are going to, I suppose if you're doing both, you can see a way they coalesce perfectly together, right? Like
it has to be a certain way, but you're living the dream. You get to have fun and just run around and yell and point the mic in the crowd. That's the best. That's the dream.
I'm spoiled rotten. I've always known it. I'm spoiled rotten.
So we have the 25th anniversary edition of It All Comes Down to This out there on Equal Vision Records right now, and it's been fully remastered, so everybody check that out.
Yeah, we had the vinyl on the West Coast tour, and kids were buying the shit out of it. I was so psyched, man. Kids were buying the hell out of it.
It's a classic.
Makes me happy. Makes me happy that they can get it again. You know, it always annoys me, the thought that kids have to go on Discogs and pay a bunch of money if they want to have a Bane record on vinyl. It really drives me crazy that all of our stuff isn't just in print all the time for just someone to be able to pick up for a reasonable price.
Well, Aaron, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was great. I was hoping I would get to talk to you at one point. I've been listening to you for a really long time, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the years, and thank you for squeezing me in. That's so cool that you, even though you already had done the interview with two of us, you wanted to get me on here. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
And there you have it, Aaron Bedard. What an excellent conversation. I'm glad that we finally got Aaron on the show. And I'm so glad that he was so forthcoming with everything he went through in his past, the abuse, how he dealt with it, how the scene was there for him, how the music was there for him, and how he finally addressed it in the music of Bane. I know those conversations help a lot of people out there who go through similar situations or who are just looking for a way to deal with something. So thank you for that, Aaron. Make sure everybody checks out the newly remixed and remastered 25th anniversary edition of It All Comes Down to This. I was just listening to it earlier today, and it's amazing. Remember how during the interview I said, I'll listen to the new one and then go back and listen to the shitty one? I might stick with the new one on this. The guitars just sound so much bigger and fuller and brighter. It's amazing. But I'm happy that Bane is back. I hope they do end up writing new music, and I hope to see them again soon. So thank you again, Aaron, for coming on the show. So let's check in. How are we doing? I hope everybody out there is doing well. I wasn't in the best mood this past week, but I made sure to do something about it, and it ended up being a great week. A bunch of money that I've been waiting to get from work came in, so I took that opportunity to purchase a new guitar, which I've been waiting to do. I picked up the Dunnable Cyclops DE, which you can see right now if you're on YouTube, and I love it. I am getting ever closer to attaining the perfect tone for memory entry. Next week, we're going to be messing around with all kinds of guitar head and guitar cabinet and bass cabinet configurations to try to find the perfect live sound, because the EP announcement is coming next month. We've got a couple shows booked. I want to play a lot more. All of that's going to be announced very soon, so keep an eye out for that and follow us on Instagram at Memory Entry if you have not done so yet. So that's my main focus right now. I'm very excited about it. And I can't wait for next month. Besides that, it's just been a good week, handling some financial stuff, getting to buy some new toys, a good week of recovery. My mood tanked a little bit during the week, but instead of just sitting around and feeling bad, I made myself get up and work out a lot. I'm back on track, and it feels fantastic. And listen, if anybody out there is dealing with depression or lethargy or bad feelings or boredom, or you just want to get in shape, start working out. Start doing something. I started working out more back in May of 2024 to get in shape for these memory entry gigs. I was started out by doing a lot of running, and then I felt so good and so pumped up after the running, I was like, I've got to get dumbbells. So then I got dumbbells, and I've slowly increased the weight on those over time. But then I was running too much and I ended up losing too much weight. So I cut back on that. Now I'm doing some cardio and a lot of body weight and dumbbell exercises. And look, the first time I ever worked out was sometime back in 2017. I would do some push-ups and some squats, and I think maybe some tricep exercises too. Then I stopped doing it. Then during the pandemic, I just felt like veal, because I was just sitting around inside all day, not doing anything, barely getting outside, barely walking around. So I started doing the push-ups again. But then in May of 2024, The prospect of playing live shows again finally propelled me to really start working out for real. And I feel like I have found my groove now. I feel way better. I feel like I look better. So if you need something to boost your mind and body and spirit, start exercising. Find a routine that works for you. Try different stuff out. So let's move into the new scene, Community Hour. I've got some new comments here from episode 263 with Brendan Murphy of Counterparts and End. Marcus says, getting one guide made me laugh. I listened to this episode while taking a bath. 10 of 10 would recommend. Thank you, Marcus. And shout out to you. How you doing, dude? Yeah, one guide is one of my favorite recent terms that I've heard. I love that. And another one that I'm definitely going to use now. Remember when Brendan said Sirius XM riffs? That was good. And Oates said this about the episode with Brendan. Totally agree about Necessary Death. Goosebumps every time. You are absolutely right, Oates. Necessary Death, best modern breakdown. Which one is better? I can't think of a better one. We've got some new YouTube comments here too. Sue That's Who said this about episode 157 with Jake Snyder of Minus the Bear. Sue says, just now listening to this great interview. Also surprised by lack of comments. This guy is the gem. Yes, I love when people say that. I can't believe that all of my interviews on YouTube don't have 1 million views and 1 million comments each. You know, I'm just waiting for that big algorithm pull, and then it's going to happen. But Sue, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the episode. That's one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. So definitely check that out if you haven't gotten into the back catalog yet. Jake, super cool guy. Amazing conversation. Matt Sleet said this about episode 262 with Jesse Leach of Killswitch Engage. Times of Grace, Songs of Loss and Separation was one of my favorite albums of the last 5 years. I wish it would get more love. They apparently recorded an EP at the same time, but it seems to have been given up on. Would love more from them. Yeah, Times of Grace, another great band. Thank you, Matt. And Blessed 2XS said this about episode 262 with Jesse Leach. The best singer ever. Definitely one of the best for sure. Awesome person. J. Con Coffee said this about the same episode. Have loved Killswitch Engage since around 2004, and these guys don't seem to have changed one bit. Just cool guys who love playing their music. Looking forward to the new album. Same here, J. Con. That's going to be good. RNB said this about episode 263 with Brendan Murphy of Counterparts and End. Super good interview. Thanks a lot. That new EP is amazing. Hopefully they will still come to Newfoundland soon. Oh yeah, Brendan was giving people a hard time for saying, that he doesn't come to rare parts of Canada. Hero Brown said this about episode 262 with Jesse Leach. Can't wait for the new album. I still regret not seeing them in Auckland with Iron Maiden. Hope they come here again. Oh man, that would have been an amazing show to see. J Gang said this about episode 157 with Jake Snyder of Minus the Bear. As a huge Minus the Bear, I guess he means fan? OMG, OMG, OMG. There you go. Another person that loves the Jake Snyder episode. So thank you everybody who's writing, liking, commenting, sharing, giving the algorithm what it needs to take us to the top. I really appreciate that. And remember, you can always email me at newscenepod@iodinerecords.com. So that's it for this week. That's all I've got. So we are going to end the show with one of my all-time favorite songs. I came across this acoustic version of Antique by Texas Is the Reason on YouTube earlier today, and I've been listening to it nonstop. So we'll end the show with that, and I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. I'll see you then.